Today topic that we are going to learn is visual pathway, and if I when you see the objectives, we'll see the introduction, layers of retina, visual pathway, orders of neurons, retina, optic nerve, optic chiasm, lateral geniculate nucleus, optic radiation, and visual centers. This is the eyeball, the anatomy, functional anatomy. Visual pathway starts from the retina. Retina you can see over here. This is the area. Retina consists of 10 layers. Light has to pass all these layers to reach the layer of rods and cones. In the next picture I will show you that. The right sided one is the 10 layers of the retina. Light has to pass all the 10 layers, finally should reach the layer of rods and cones. In the visual pathway, it consists of mainly, see the left side one, the rods and cones are communicated with the bipolar ganglion cells, and these all are the part of the retina. And from the retina, from each eyeball, optic nerve comes out, form the optic chiasm. From there, it relay into the lateral geniculate nucleus, which is a part of the thalamus. From there, fibers emerge, are called optic radiation. They relay in the primary visual cortex, area number 17. Later on, other visual cortex areas 18, 19, and 20, 21, 37, 7, 8, and which are located in the medial, temporal, and medial superior temporal areas. Now coming to the three order of neurons in this picture. It is not so clear, I don't know, in phone they are not appearing properly. There are three order of neurons are there in the visual pathway. First order of neurons are called primary neurons, which are nothing but the bipolar cells. The second order neurons called secondary neurons, which are ganglion cells. The third order neurons or tertiary neurons forms the lateral geniculate body, which is a part of the thalamus. Already I mentioned in the previous slide, part of the thalamus. Now, when you see the visual pathway clearly, this pathway consists of, look at all the structures of the pathway, and you can see the eyeball, optic nerve, optic chiasm, optic tract, optic lateral geniculate nucleus of the thalamus, from there optic radiation and visual cortex. This is generally what I can tell you here is your your optic pathway. Now in detail about each structure we are going to learn. First, I would like to start with retina, which is a photosensitive layer that converts the light into electrical impulses. Electrical impulses is the retina. Photosensitive layer which converts the light into electrical impulses is the retina. Now, look at this picture. Next structure that comes is optic nerve. Okay. Next structure which is coming is known as optic nerve. This area, optic nerve. Here is the optic nerve. And here the optic nerve and optic nerve coming. So this structure is called your optic nerve. This is the area where you have optic nerve is emerging. Right? The optic nerve constitute the fibers of the basal ganglia leave the eyeball at optic disc. The fibers from the temporal part of retina are present in the lateral half of the nerve and carry the impulses from the nasal field of the same eye. The fibers from the nasal part of the retina are present in the medial half of the nerve and carry the impulses from temporal field of the same eye. That is what the difference between the fibers carrying the information from temporal field of the eye and the nasal field of the eye. In this picture, optic nerve emerge from an area called optic disc where there is no image formation takes place. This is the area of which is free of rods and cones. The next structure, optic chiasma or optic chiasm, some book says. It is formed by the crossing of medial fibers of both the optic nerves. The crossed fibers join with the uncrossed lateral fibers of the opposite side and forming the optic tract. Okay. The next structure is optic tract. It consists of one of the fibers from opposite optic nerve and another half from the optic nerve of the same side. The fibers run towards the lateral geniculate body and they relay over there. They relay over there is optic tract. Another important structure, the lateral geniculate body or nucleus. It forms a subcortical relay center for visual impulses and it is a part of the thalamus. I stress this point many times. The next order of fibers from lateral geniculate nucleus is referred to as the geniculocalcarine tract or optic radiation. Optic radiation. In the lateral geniculate nucleus, it is divided into the left and right, both pictures you can see, 6 layers of cells. The crossed fibers at the optic tract terminate in 1, 4 and 6 layers, while the uncrossed fibers terminate in 2, 3 and 5 layers. The lateral geniculate nucleus also contains 2 types of cells, magno and parvo cells. Layer 1 and 2 contain magno cells and layer 3, 4, 5 and 6 contain parvo cells. Okay, so with this we have completed lateral geniculate nucleus. Now coming to optic radiation. It is a last relay of fibers from lateral geniculate nucleus pass through posterior limb of the internal capsule and form optic radiation. The optic radiation terminates in primary visual area, area number 17, in Brodmann's area. And from there they pass to the visual association area. They are 18 and 19. 18 and 19. Now coming to some of the projections of retina on primary visual cortex, like a lower quadrant of macula, upper quadrant of macula, upper peripheral quadrant of macula, lower peripheral quadrant of the macula, and in the occipital cortex around the calcarine fissure. Calcarine fissure. Now we'll see the another important part is visual centers. The visual centers, look at that. The visual cortex has 6 layers on top left side. I don't want to go in detail about that, only I want to show the picture over here. But this is important, the right sided one, the primary visual cortex, we call it as Brodmann area 17. It is also known as V1, located on the medial surface of the occipital lobe along with the lips of calcarine fissure. They look like lips. The left of the field of vision are represented in the visual cortex of the right hemisphere along the calcarine fissure and vice versa. The retina has definite localized representation in the visual cortex. The macula has the largest representation in the posterior part of visual cortex near the occipital pole. Okay. So this is how the representation of retina on the medial side of the occipital cortex on the area number 17. The peripheral part of the retina has also represented in the anterior part of the visual cortex along with the calcarine fissure. Means lower retina are mapped below the calcarine fissure, and the lower fields, that means upper retina above it. So primary visual area 17 is concerned with the perception of the visual impulses. Okay, now we'll move on to area 18 that we call visuo-psychic area. We also call it as V2, and this is located on lateral surface of the occipital lobe above and anterior to area number 17. This is concerned with the higher visual functions such as visual orientation and the depth of the perception, and finally relays information to other areas of the cerebral cortex. Now area number 19. Area number 19. Okay. Here I would like to talk about area number 19. This area number 19 is the occipital eye field located at the anterior to area 18 on the lateral surface of the occipital lobe. It is concerned with the conjugated movements of the eyeball, and it is called occipital eye field. This is also known as occipital eye field. Now area 18, frontal eye field, located in the middle frontal gyrus. It is concerned with the voluntary conjugated deviation of the eyes to the opposite side. Okay, now coming to other areas. Area 20, 21, 37, 7. which are located in the middle temporal and medial superior temporal areas, also participate in visual processing. And the roles of the 20, 21 and 37, these are concerned with analysis of visual details like recognition of the face, objects and other textures, recognition of the letters, recognition of the detailed color of the objects, and understanding the importance of objects and their colors. Okay. Some of the projections from visual cortex to other areas, and they are lateral and medial views, lateral occipital and medial temporal and ventral parietal areas. And here some of the, as already I have shown you, V1, the main function of V1, primary visual cortex receiving inputs from lateral geniculate nucleus, begins processing in terms of orientation, edges, etc. V2, V3, VP, continued processing, larger visual fields. V3A for the motion. V4, detection of the shape, color and texture of the object. Likewise, LO, lateral occipital, recognition of the shape. And MT, medial temporal, process, detection of direction of movement. VP, ventroparietal, continued processing, large visual fields. And V8 for the color vision. And some of the connections with the visual pathway here, and in the slide it is not so clearly mentioned. Fibers from the occipital cortex to the frontal eye field, that is area number 18, is concerned with the movement of the eyeball, particularly with the convergence. And here you can see in the picture, fibers from optic tract, before they end in the lateral geniculate body, reach the pretectal nucleus, which in turn sends fibers to third cranial nerve nucleus, which mediates the light reflex. And some of the connections from what I can show you, occipital chiasma to the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus and form the limbic system. When it is connected with the limbic system, concerned with certain circadian rhythms and sexual cycles in birds and in some of the mammals. And last but not least, reticulohypothalamic projections also influence sleep patterns. These are some of the connections regarding with the what we call it as pathway. Here you can see lesions of the optic pathway, and a lesion that interrupt the optic nerve that causes complete blindness of that particular eye. And A in the picture you can see on the right side of your pathway. Lesion on optic tract, B you can, and not B, C, optic tract you can see, causes blindness of half of the visual field, and it is called homonymous, meaning of homonymous, same side of the both visual fields. And hemianopia is nothing but half blindness. Okay, now you can see the B, lesions affecting optic chiasm destroy fibers from both nasal hemiretinas and produce a heteronymous, opposite side of the visual fields get affected. Okay, hemianopia, that we call it as B. Now D you can see, occipital lesions may spare the fibers from macula, as in D, because of the separation of the brain of these fibers from other subserving vision. So these are some of the common lesions of the optic nerve. And bit in detail if we go, the meaning of anopia is visual loss of the vision. Whatever may be the reason, maybe accident or injury. Okay, anopia. Hemianopia, loss of vision in one half of the visual field, is called hemianopia. Homonymous, same halves of both visual field. Heteronymous, in the opposite halves of both visual field. Quadranopia, quadranopia, a loss of vision in 1/4 of visual field is called quadranopia. Either it can be homonymous and heteronymous. The macular sparing, already I mentioned, it is not affected macular vision because it's bitemporal representation. Now once again I recollect the optic nerve and anopia. Medial fiber of the optic chiasma, heteronymous hemianopia, it could be bitemporal. Lateral fibers of the optic chiasma, heteronymous hemianopia. Optic tract, homonymous hemianopia. Optic radiation, homonymous hemianopia with macular sparing. Visual cortex, homonymous hemianopia with macular sparing, superior or inferior. These are all about your optic pathway lesions. And here are some of the references from Burney and Levy, Best and Taylor, Boron and G.K. Pal. Okay. So with this I conclude my lecture of visual pathway. Hope you understood the lecture. If you have any problems, you can ping me personally so that I can respond to your messages. Thank you. Thank you so much with this. Thank you very much.